A few years ago, I was lucky enough to buy this copy of the telephone directory, which covers the whole of Scotland and Northern Ireland from January 1940. And in it, I found the entry for Mr. Peddy, who built this house in 1936, and his telephone number at the time. Now, we had a different telephone number from when we moved into the house, and so I called the number in the telephone directory and I got a message telling me that it was unavailable. So I replaced the handset and dialed again because you should always redial to check whether you've made an error in dialing. And it turned out that the number wasn't in use. So I called up British Telecom, and there was a really, really helpful man there who, when I told him why I wanted the number, was very sympathetic and arranged it for me. So I think he indulged me quite heavily. He can't get too many requests like that in the working week. So anyway, within 24 hours, he had restored Mr. Peddy's original telephone number to this house, which is Cooper 2240. Back in the 1940s, it was still very unusual to be on the telephone, but if you were somebody of business, you might well have an installation be what they called a telephone subscriber in those days. And the standard instrument that you were given by the GPO, that's the General Post Office, who ran the telephone system in those days, was one of these candlestick or pedestal types. Now, this one is mounted on a bracket because this is for the businessman to be able to have it suspended at his mouth while he uses the other hand to hold the receiver to his ear. As you can hear, this telephone still works, and this enabled him to have his other hand free to make notes and consult papers. At the time, the post office was keen that people would spend a little bit of extra money with them for more modern products, and this is a telephone directory from January 1940, and in it is an advertisement for the hand microphone, which was still a relatively modern piece of equipment. It was a new innovation to have the combined handset and the combined receiver and transmitted in the handset. And as it says here, that you can get a hand microphone for 5 shillings if you want a black one. If you want one in green, ivory, or red, you have to pay a whole pound, and that's a one-off charge that you never get back again. Just to have the instrument installed in your house. And if you wanted a matching bell set, then you had to pay an extra 10 shillings, so £1 and 10 shillings. And the bell set was the thing that went on the wall with the bell in it and some other circuitry to make the telephone work. And these are examples of the instruments. That is the black model that you would get for paying 5 shillings, and if you paid a pound, you would get one in ivory like this, or red, or green. In the 1930s, the post office was rapidly modernising its telephone system and was sending out literature like this to subscribers when they were being changed over to the automatic telephone system. And this explained how they would use the dial newly installed on their telephone to make their own calls through to other subscribers. And before dials were put on telephones, they were more like this, with either a dial blank or no dial at all. And you just lifted the handset and you waited until the operator answered your call and connected your number by hand. Now, when the dial was introduced, it meant that subscribers had to get used to a set of tones, because when they lifted the handset, they had to wait and listen for the dial tone, which told them that the apparatus was ready to receive their dialing instructions. And once the bell was being rung at the other end of the line, there was a particular tone. If the number was engaged, there was another tone, or if it was unobtainable, there was another tone still. So, although we're quite used to that nowadays, this was a new concept to people in the 1930s when the telephone system was being modernized. And this house was actually installed with the telephone from the beginning in 1936, and it had one of these models with the bell set mounted on the wall in the hallway. And it was very common for telephones to be installed in the hall, which is uh, maybe a deliberate ploy to keep calls short because it's well known that hallways in British houses were always cold and drafty.